Good morning, friends. Welcome to the lecture of functional analysis. In last lecture, we have seen the examples which are dependent on the equivalent norms. Now, in today's lecture, we will move ahead towards an important theorem proving all norms on a finite dimensional space are equivalent. Let me share my screen. Right. Therefore, the theorem which we are going to prove today is all norms on finite dimensional space are equivalent are equivalent. Okay, now we don't know exactly how many number of norms are defined on the finite dimensional space. First thing, we will recall what is the meaning of finite dimensional space. Finite dimensional space is the linear space which has finite number of elements in its basis. Suppose here we will start with, this will be a norm which is of n dimensions. Therefore, the assumption we will make today is n is a finite dimensional space, right? N is finite dimensional space of dimension say small n, of dimension say small n. If this is small n, then what are the elements in the basis? Let me write the elements in the basis be say x1, x2 up to xn be the basis. Now we know the criteria. If we know the basis elements of any linear space n, then we can write an arbitrary element of the given linear space as the linear combination of the basis elements together with the scalars. Okay, therefore may I write any x in n. For any x in n, it can be written as a linear combination of these basis elements. Therefore may I say there exist unique scalars. There exist unique scalars say alpha 1, alpha 2 up to alpha n, such that such that x can be written as alpha 1 x1, alpha 2 x2, so on up to alpha n xn, up to alpha n xn. Let me just zoom out. Yeah, this is fine. Okay, now the aim is to prove the norms, all norms defined are equivalent. Therefore, what the job we will do here in this proof, we will define one particular norm, say 0th norm. Therefore, let me denote the norm as 0th norm. We will fix it. Okay, and later we will take an arbitrary norm defined on the linear space n. Okay, therefore, what we are going to do, we will fix this norm and we will call this norm as a 0th norm. We will call this norm as 0th norm. Okay. And later we will start with an arbitrary norm defined on the linear space. This is my arbitrary norm. Then what is the aim to prove in this proof? The aim is to prove that this norm 0 is equivalent to norm. If I prove this, what does it mean? Norm 0 is equivalent to an arbitrary norm. Therefore, may I say that all norms are equivalent to one another. With this, the proof will be easier for us to define, right? Therefore, now we will start the process of defining the 0th norm. Before that, let me call this equation as some equation number 1, say. Okay, now first job we will do is we will try to define a fixed norm, say 0th norm. And the definition we will use here is for any x in n, norm 0 of x. Norm 0 of x we will define as maximum mod alpha I on the condition I lies between 1 to n. I lies between 1 to n. Look at this equation number 1. In equation number 1, a vector x is represented in terms of n basis vectors with the help of n scalars alpha 1 to alpha n. Then we are defining this zeroth norm as maximum modulus of the scalar. Maximum modulus of that scalar. Okay. Now let me call this as equation number 2. Okay. Now one can very easily define that this is a norm. In order to define this as a norm on the linear space, and what one has to do? One has to verify the 4 properties. What is the first property? To prove norm 0 of x is non-negative. But as we are defining this as maximum among the mod alpha i's, we know mod alpha i's are non-negative. Therefore, the maximum element among these finite values between 1 to n, alpha 1 to alpha n, must be non-negative. If first condition will be readily true. Therefore, may I say norm 0 of x is non-negative, right? Second condition, norm 0 of x is equal to 0 if and only if x is equal to 0. Just have a look. If I take norm 0 of x is equal to 0, that is maximum number of this mod alpha I is 0, where each element is non-negative, right? Maximum among the non-negative element is 0. Therefore, one can say that every element of that set is 0. If every element is 0, according to this equation number 1, x itself is 0. Therefore, the second condition is also true. That is, norm 0 of x is equals to 0 will implies and implied by x is equal to 0. Third condition, norm 0 of x plus y. If I take x plus y, the corresponding ith scalar of the both the vectors. Suppose the scalars we will use for the another vector as some beta is. Therefore, what will be a term here? Maximum mod alpha I plus beta I. But we know already now modulus satisfies triangle inequality. Therefore, easily one can prove the third condition also. That is, norm 0 of x plus y is less equal by norm 0 of x plus norm 0 of y. Okay, and it remains with the last condition to prove this as a no. What will be a last condition? Norm 0 of alpha x. If it is alpha x, what will be the ith scalar? This is alpha alpha I, right? But the maximum value depends on I. Therefore, alpha is independent of I. We can take it very easily out of the modulus. Therefore, this term mod alpha alpha I can be written as mod alpha into mod alpha I. Therefore, we can easily take that mod alpha out of the maximum set of this set. Therefore, easily the last condition is also verified. That is, norm 0 of x is mod alpha into norm 0. Sorry, here it is norm 0 of alpha x is equals to mod alpha into norm 0. Therefore, easily one can prove that this is a norm on the linear space N. Okay. Now we will take another norm as I have already defined, and the aim is to prove. What is my aim to prove now? Let me change the color. Now our aim is to define norm, okay, on capital N, and to prove that. What is our aim to prove? That this norm 0 is equivalent to this arbitrary norm. Okay, now we have already seen a theorem. If I want to prove the two norms are equivalent, then it is enough to prove that. Okay, therefore I will write it is enough to prove. It is enough to prove that. What is enough to prove that? There exists two positive constants, say small m and capital M, such that. What such that? M norm 0 of x is less than or equals to norm of x is less than or equals to capital M into norm 0 of x, and the statement must be true for all x in N. This is what our aim is to prove. Okay, let us prove this inequality in two different parts. In the first part, we will prove the right part of the inequality. In the first part, we will go for the left part. Okay, in step 1, we will try to prove the right part of the inequality. Okay, therefore to prove that norm x is less equal by capital M into norm 0 of x, right? For this, let us start with an arbitrary vector x in N. Okay, consider x in n. If x is in n, let me start with norm of x. Okay, as x is in n, we know the basis for n, therefore we can very easily write down the element which is a linear combination of the basis elements together with the fixed scalars, as we have written in equation number 1. Therefore this is summation mod alpha I xi. Okay, now this is norm. We have taken this to be a norm already, arbitrary norm. Therefore it must satisfy the triangular inequality. Here in this norm we have the sum of n different elements, okay, or points. Therefore let me use the triangular inequality to write this is less equal by summation I from 1 to n norm of alpha I xi. Okay, norm of an addition is less equal by addition of the respective norms. This is what by triangular inequality. This is true by triangular inequality, right? Now again, as this norm taken is a norm, now let us use the fourth property of the norm. What is the fourth property of the norm? Let me take this scalar mod alpha I out of the norm with a modulus sign. Therefore this we can write as mod alpha I into norm of xi. No doubt summation I is running from 1 to n. Okay, now look at this structure. What does this mean? Summation mod alpha xi, mod alpha into norm of xi. If I run up the sum, what will happen? If we run up the sum, what will happen? This is less equal by mod alpha 1 into norm of x1 plus mod alpha 2 into norm x2 and continue the process. This is mod alpha n into norm of xn. Now what we are going to take? We are going to take the scalar among alpha 1 to alpha 1 which is maximum. If it is say some alpha t is the scalar, pth scalar is maximum among all mod alphas. Let me write modulus here also. Okay, and where is this I? I is running from 1 to n. Some pth scalar is the maximum value. Therefore, may I write mod alpha I is less equal by mod alpha p for all I or for any I, right? Therefore, just replace this mod alpha 1, mod alpha 2 by mod alpha p. There is this less equal inequality will be continued as it is. Therefore, the above equation becomes norm x is less equal. Here I'll write mod alpha 1 is replaced with less equal mod alpha p into norm x1 as it is plus mod alpha p into norm x2 as it is and continue the process. This is mod alpha p into norm of xn. Now what I will do? I will take this mod alpha p out. Okay. And what is remaining with us? We are remaining with summation norm xi. No doubt I is from 1 to n. Right. Now what this alpha p we have selected? Alpha p is maximum mod alpha I. Maximum mod alpha I provided I lies between 1 to n into summation norm xi into summation norm xi. But according to our definition, maximum mod alpha I we have defined as norm 0, zeroth norm of, norm 0 of x we have defined, right? And let me, as the xi's are elements of the basis, those are fixed. Therefore, their norms are also fixed. Therefore, summation norm xi is a fixed value, and let me denote that fixed value with some capital M. Therefore, what is my capital M value? This is summation norm xi. Okay. Therefore, what we have proved, just have a look. This is norm x is less than or equals to M into norm 0 of x. Okay. Let me call this to be next equation number 3. Say that is, we have proved the left part of this inequality. The left part we have proved. Okay, now our aim is to go to the right part we have proved. Now our aim is to go to the left part of the inequality in order to prove. And to prove this left part of the inequality, we are going to use the method of mathematical induction. Okay, let me change the color with my pencil as well. Right, now we will move towards step number 2 now. What is my step 2? Step 2 is to prove that, what to prove? M norm 0 of x is less than or equals to norm of x. And no doubt which method we are going to use? We are going to use mathematical induction. We are going to use mathematical induction. What mathematical induction method tells us that prove the result initially for n equal to 1, then make an induction hypothesis that the result is true for all the values less than n, okay, and then prove the result is true for the value equal to n, okay. Therefore here we will prove this for n equal to 1 first. For n equal to 1. For n equals to 1 means what? The space under the consideration is a one-dimensional space. Okay. Therefore, let me write the basis as singleton x1. This be a basis. Basis of the space, one-dimension space. Therefore, any vector in this one-dimensional space is uniquely written as, how can we write a vector in this space? Say alpha 1 x1 only, right? Because that is the only one dimensional. The every vector can be written as like this, x is equal to alpha 1 x1. Hence, what will be norm of x then? Norm of x is norm of alpha 1 x1. Okay, but norm is already a norm. Therefore, using a fourth property, let us take the scalar out with a modulus. Therefore, this is mod alpha 1 into norm x1. Okay, but what is mod alpha 1? What is mod alpha 1? Mod alpha 1 is the only scalar. Therefore, I can write this is the maximum scalar. And if is the maximum scalar, this is nothing but your zeroth norm, right? Therefore, this is norm 0 into norm of x1. Norm 0 into norm of x1. Why I'm saying this? Because norm 0 is defined as maximum mod alpha i's, right? But here how many alphas we have? Only one. Therefore, what is this value? Mod alpha 1 itself. Therefore, mod alpha 1 is nothing but norm 0 of x. Right? Therefore, if I write this value as we have, as this x1 is an element of basis, therefore this is x1 is fixed. If x1 the vector is fixed, its norm is also fixed. Therefore, let me assume this value to be some small m. M is equal to norm of x1. Therefore, the above equation becomes what the above equation becomes? Norm x is equal to m into norm x now. Oh, sorry, norm 0 of x. Sorry, this is m into norm 0 of x. Actually, we want to prove m into norm 0 of x. Look at this. Don't forget the result to prove. M into norm 0 of x is less than or equal to norm of x. Here we got equality. M into norm 0 of x is equal to norm of x. That is, the left hand side is verified. Okay. Therefore, the result is true for n equal to 1. Right? The result is true for n equal to 1. And hence in this case, one can say norm is equivalent to norm 0. In one-dimensional case, arbitrary norm is equivalent to a fixed norm, that is a 0th norm. This we have proved, right? Now, what we will do, we will make the induction hypothesis. What will be my induction hypothesis now? Induction hypothesis, we will assume that the result is true for all the spaces of dimension less than or equals to 1. Therefore, here I will write induction hypothesis. induction hypothesis. The result is true for all spaces, or all linear spaces rather, all linear spaces of dimension less than or equal to n minus 1, that is less than n. Therefore, let us start with a space L spanned by n minus 1 elements, that is n minus 1 dimensional space. Therefore, this is the space spanned by, say, x1, x2 up to xn minus 1. Up to xn minus 1. Then what induction hypothesis tells us? In this norm is equivalent to norm 0. Norm is equivalent to norm 0. Now what is our next step to prove? The next step is to prove that the result is true for the spaces of n dimensions. In order to prove that the result is true, what is my next step? To prove that the result is true. The result is true for n dimension space. For n dimension space. We have proved it true for n minus 1 dimension space. Now what the job we will do? We will try to construct n dimensional space by using this n minus 1 dimensional linear space L. N minus 1 dimensional space L. Okay. Before that, we will try to prove that L is closed subspace of L. In order to construct that n dimensional space from L, we will first prove that, what to prove that, or what to show that L is closed subspace. L is closed subspace of n. Right? What is n? This n, we know it is n dimensional space. Now to prove that L is closed subspace of A, we know that it is enough to prove this is a complete. This L is complete. Why? It is enough to prove. It is enough to prove L is complete. L is complete. Why? Because already we have proved that every complete subspace of a nonlinear space is closed. Therefore, in order to construct that n-dimensional space from L, we will try to prove that L is closed. For that, we will try to prove L is complete. Now we know the method how to prove the space is complete. We will start with one Cauchy sequence and we will prove that the Cauchy sequence is convergent and converges in the same space. Therefore, here we will start with YR be a Cauchy sequence in L with respect to norm, this arbitrary norm C. Okay. Now since we know that already in this norm, norm is equivalent to norm 0. Therefore, may I say this YR is also Cauchy with respect to norm 0. Therefore, this is also Cauchy sequence in L with respect to norm 0. Okay, because the two norms are equivalent to one another. Again, as this Cauchy sequence we will try to first go for the coordinate wise Cauchy sequence. For that purpose, let me write some ith coordinate of the sequence YR. What is the ith coordinate? As this ith coordinate is nothing but a member of L, L is an n-1 dimensional space spanned by x1, x2 till xn minus 1. Therefore, this yi is also written as the linear combination of x1 to xn minus 1 with the fixed scalars. Now, let me write the scalars with the overhead I. Therefore, let me write this as alpha 1 I into x1. Okay, this is alpha 2 I into x2. continue the process till alpha n minus 1 I into xn minus 1, because yi is an element of L. Therefore, we have written this to be the linear combination of these x1 to xn minus 1. Therefore, these scalars used alpha 1i, alpha 2i till alpha n minus 1i are uniquely determined scalars with respect to this basis x1 to xn minus 1. Okay. Now we have assumed that the sequence is Cauchy with respect to norm 0. Therefore, may I write for some r and s, yr minus ys, norm 0 of yr minus ys tends to 0 as rs tends to infinity, as rs tends to infinity. Instead of norm, why I am using norm 0? Because we know the fixed definition for norm 0, because it was defined as maximum among the scalars used. What will be some scalar? Let me take some kth scalar. What do you think? What will be a kth scalar? Okay, the kth scalar of yr, kth scalar of yr will be alpha k of r. Say first scalar of yi is alpha 1i, second scalar of yi is alpha 2 of y. Likewise, kth scalar of yr is alpha kr. Similarly, kth scalar of ys must be alpha k over s. Okay, and then according to norm 0 definition, we are finding maximum among these scalars, where no doubt k lies between 1 to n minus 1. Now we know this tends to 0 as rs tends to infinity. Let me call this to be next equation number, say 4. Now look at this statement. Maximum value of a non-negative term is tending to 0. What about every term then? Every term must tend to 0. Therefore, may I write mod alpha kr minus alpha ks tends to 0 as rs tends to infinity for each k. This is for each k equal to 1 to n, no doubt. Let me call this as equation number 1. K is a value taking from 1 to n minus 1. But what this R suggests us, alpha kr is a Cauchy sequence over R or C, because these are the scalars. Therefore, may I write, this gives us alpha kr is Cauchy sequence in, or a Cauchy sequence in either R or C, whichever is the field under the consideration, right? Therefore, this is Cauchy sequence, but we know both the spaces are complete. If both the spaces are complete, this Cauchy sequence must be convergent and converges to an element in the same space. Therefore, may I write alpha k r tends to some alpha k as r tends to infinity for each k, for each k. Okay, therefore here we have proved that the sequence alpha kr converges to alpha k. Therefore, may I say whatever is the element we have written, what is the element we have written? Yi as summation. What we have written? This is alpha ki into xk. K is taking a value from 1 to n minus 1, right? 1 to n minus 1. This alpha ki or kr converges to alpha k. Therefore, one can easily say that the sequence yr converges to y with respect to norm 0. With respect to norm 0. Okay, actually we have seen in detail in some previous theorems initially. If there is a coordinate wise convergence, we can easily prove that this yr is going to converge to y. If yr is going to converge to y with respect to norm 0, therefore what does it mean? That the sequence is convergent, converges to an element in the same space. Therefore, this YR converges to Y with respect to norm also, because both the norms are equivalent. Okay, both the norms are equivalent. Hence, we can say that the space, the subspace L we have started with is complete. The subspace L is complete. Okay, and hence we have proved that the subspace L complete with respect to arbitrary norm. Therefore, this is closed. Therefore, this is closed. L is closed. Okay, now we'll keep the point of L is closed to one side, and we will move towards construction of the n-dimensional space from the n-1 dimensional space. Okay, therefore we will keep this point here and we will move towards. If we just recall, the basis for the space L we have written is x1 to xn minus 1. That is xn, the last basis is missing. Therefore, what I am going to do is, I am going to add the element L to the set L or the space L, and we will check what is the effect. Okay, therefore, as we know, now xn is nth basis vector. Nth basis vector, and as this is the basis vector, this must be non-zero. This must be non-zero. Okay, now the job we will do is, we will try to construct a set xn plus L. Xn plus L. What will be a definition? Actually, set adding an element to a set, it means we are going to add that vector to every element of the set. Therefore, the nature of element will be xn plus z, such that z belongs to L. Okay, that is, every element z will be taken to xn plus z. Every element z of L is taken to xn plus z. Okay, that is, this is a mapping from L to xn plus L. Mapping from L to xn plus L. One can very easily observe that this mapping is an isometry. Check, consider. Let me check. Okay, the mapping is taking a vector z to xn plus z as we have defined already. Therefore, let me take the distance between any two elements of this codomain side. Let me take some xn plus z minus xn plus y. Any two elements of xn plus L. Okay, let us find out. If we easily observe, xn will get cancelled, and here we will get it as norm of z minus y, which is nothing but the distance between the two vectors y and z. Therefore, this is a isometry, rather a distance preserving map. If I want to show you by a suitable sketch, suppose somewhere here is my linear space here. We know by adding a vector, by adding a fixed vector to every element of the set L, the only change happens is the vectors will be shifted to a specific direction. Every element of the vector is shifted to a specific direction depending upon that xn. Therefore, this may be a new position of your xn plus L. Same shape, okay? Though here it looks different, but you assume the same shape. Only the changes previously, this is the original position of your L space. This is the original position, and this is a shifted position. This is a shifted position, right? If I want to show this concept in R2, this is easy for us to verify, right? Suppose I am taking a straight line. I am taking a straight line bisecting the first quadrant. Means the line I am taking is y is equal to x. Therefore, every element here is 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, and so on. Okay. Suppose I want to add a fixed vector. Suppose I want to add a fixed vector, say 1, 0. What will happen? Okay, this element, this position 1, 1 added with 1, 0. What will be a new position? It's 2, 1. It's 2, 1 means somewhere here. This is the new position. Let me show you the new position with a different color sketch, right? Therefore, what is the new position? Here is the new position. 2, 1, right? Now, 1, 1 added with 1, 0 will be 2, 1. X coordinate 2, Y coordinate is still 1. Similarly, if I add it to a vector 2, 2, 1, 0, if I add, what will be my new position? This is 3, 2, and here is 3, 2, and just continue. Okay, therefore, what will be a new locus? Same straight line, but with a shift. Okay, the same concept I am telling you here. Every vector in L is just shifted by a fixed vector xn, and this will be a new position. Therefore, any distance between any two vectors y and z, the corresponding images will be xn plus y and xn plus z. Therefore, no doubt there will be a same distance between these two vectors. Therefore, this is an isometry. This is an isometry. Now, since L is closed, what can I say about xn plus L? Xn plus L is also closed. Okay, because why? Because it is just a shift. Therefore, xn plus is a closed set. If xn plus L is closed set, what about its complement? May I say the complement is open? The complement is open. Right now, if the complement is open, we will just try to say that 0 is not an element of this set. 0 doesn't belongs to xn plus L. How it could be now? Because if as L is a vector space, means it should have 0. To that 0, we have added a fixed vector xn. Therefore, in the new set, we don't have any xn. But still, we will try to prove. To prove the result, if I suppose that 0 is there, if I suppose, or making a contradictory assumption, that 0 is an element of xn plus L, then 0 could be written as some xn plus z, right? What is z? How that z can be written? Z can be written as a linear combination of the basis elements. Beta 1 xn 2, say beta n minus 1 xn minus 1. Okay, now look at this. Is it possible for me to get xn 0? The possibility that maybe the scalars must be 0. If I put all the scalars 0, what we are getting? Xn is equals to 0. But initially only we have made the discussion that xn is not equals to 0. Therefore, the 0 cannot be a member of xn plus L. If 0 cannot be a member of xn plus L, then 0 is surely a member of xn plus L complement, which is actually an open set. If it is open set, what can I say? That 0 is an interior point. If 0 is an interior point, what does it mean? A small sphere surrounded to 0 must be an element, lying totally in xn plus L complement. Therefore, what I will do? I will start with a sphere centered at 0 for some positive value or some radius Cn. Cn must be positive. What it will be? It will be collection of all x with a condition norm x is less than, not less than, strictly less than. Open sphere we are considering, no? Right? Therefore, this is open sphere. And this will be totally lying inside xn plus L complement. Means for the elements in xn plus L complement, we have a condition norm x is strictly less than Cn. Then what about the condition for the element in xn plus L? May I say exactly reverse will hold. Therefore, for any x in xn plus L, may I write norm x is greater equal by Cn. Norm x is greater equal by Cn. Okay, just have a look. This is our set xn plus L. This is xn plus L complement, outside region. No? Outside region. Here we have a condition norm x strictly less than Cn. Therefore, what condition should be true here? Greater equal by Cn. That is what we are using here for a positive n. Okay, for a positive n. Therefore, let me write this x. How can I write this x? X is an element we have written in L. Therefore, may I write this as alpha 1 x1, alpha 2 x2, dot dot up to alpha n minus 1 xn minus 1. Oh, sorry, x is in xn plus L, na? Therefore, I have written, this can be written added with xn. This is an element in L added with xn and is greater equal by Cn. Let me call this by some sixth equation. Right? Now, we will start with one fixed scalar alpha n is not equals to 0, and this, by using this, we will replace every scalar alpha I by alpha n. All this procedure just we are trying to do or to convert an n minus 1 dimensional space to n dimensional space, right? Therefore, if I replace, what will happen? Alpha 1 will be replaced by alpha 1 by alpha n, x1. Alpha 2 will be replaced by alpha 2 by alpha n, x2. So on. Alpha n minus 1 will be replaced by alpha n minus 1 by alpha n, x n minus 1 added with xn greater equal by Cn. Now we will multiply throughout by alpha n and shift it to the right side. Therefore, this is alpha 1 x1, alpha 2 x2, so on, alpha n minus 1 xn minus 1 plus alpha n xn greater equal by, as this is a scalar, will be taken out of the modulus norm with the modulus and shifted by modulus to the right side. Therefore, this is mod alpha n into Cn. Therefore, look at this equation. We have started with n minus 1 dimensional space L. By adding a fixed vector xn to L, we got this inequality. Okay, now what we have done this? We have started with the basis elements from x1 to xn minus 1, and then we have added xi. The same procedure I can repeat by taking, means xn is missing now. From the basis of L, xn is missing, so we have added xn to L. Now let me repeat the whole process. Instead of missing the vector xn, suppose the vector xi is missing. That is, L is the space spanned by x1, x2 to xi minus 1, xi plus 1 to xn. Means still it is an m minus 1 dimensional space. Then which vector should be added? Xi plus L, right? If the vector xi plus is added, and just repeat all the process, that xi plus L is giving us as an isometry, xi plus L is closed, therefore xi plus L complement is open, 0 is not the member of xi plus L, means 0 is the member of a complement, and then as it is open, there exists an open sphere surrounded by 0 with some radius say Ci. Okay, just repeat all the process, then we could get this same type of inequality. Only the change will be, instead of on the right it is alpha n, it will be alpha I, right? Therefore, let me write the inequality similarly for Ci equal to 0 na. Therefore, this is alpha 1 x1, alpha 2 x2, so on up to alpha n xn greater equal by mod alpha I into Ci. For I equals to, I can take any value 1 to n, mod alpha into Ci. Okay, therefore we can say for any x, now I can write this as a vector x, say, which is a element spanned by n vectors. For any x as alpha I xi, I running from 1 to n. Okay, hence we can say for any x, I am writing for any x expressed like this, the above equation tells us, what it tells us? Norm x, no? Therefore, this is greater equal by, let me write again. Alpha n xn is greater equal by, in order to take a uniqueness, as it is true for all I, may I say, as it is true for all I, there should be some values of Ci's, na? That is for I equal to 1, it is C1, for I equals to 2, it is C2, and till Cn. For the uniqueness, to fix this Ci, may I select a minimum value? Minimum Ci. Okay. If it is minimum Ci, let me write mod alpha I. Minimum I am taking over I because it is true for all I. Na? Therefore, it is equally true for minimum Ci. Okay. Now, the above equation, whichever we have written, mod alpha I, is true for each alpha I. For each alpha I. So, it must be true for the maximum value of mod alpha I as well. Anyhow, we want to introduce our zeroth norm. Okay. Therefore, it is true for all alpha i's. For all alpha i's. Therefore, it is equally true for the maximum value. Therefore, this is, let me replace this by norm x simply. Norm x is greater or equal by, let me write first, this is minimum Ci, and here I will write maximum mod alpha I. Why? Because the statement is true for each alpha I or each I. Mod alpha 1, mod alpha 2. Therefore, it is equally true for the maximum value. Therefore, let me fix this, let me write this minimum Ci value to be some small m. Therefore, norm x is greater or equal by small m into maximum mod alpha I. We know according to our definition, this is zeroth norm. Therefore, we have m norm 0 of x is less equal by norm of x is less equal by norm of x. And just you recall your third equation we have proved, left side of inequality, right part of the inequality. Therefore, from 3 and 8, from 3 and 8, m norm 0 of x is less equal by norm of x less equal by capital M into norm 0 of x. Okay, thus we have proved the statement true for a space or a vector having dependent on n dimensional basis, right? Therefore, this norm is equivalent to norm 0. This is fixed. Therefore, may I say all the norms are equivalent. All norms are equivalent. Actually, this is a bit easier proof, but if someone wants, I'll just recall the theme of the proof. Okay. What is the theme of the proof? Let us come from the starting. Okay. In the starting, we have taken an n-dimensional space n. Okay. And some fixed norm, zeroth norm we have defined. Okay. What is the zeroth norm? We have defined maximum mod alpha, and orally we have verified that this how this satisfies all the 4 properties. Then we have taken an arbitrary norm, and the aim is to prove that norm 0 is equivalent to norm. To prove that this is equivalent, actually we want to prove this kind of inequality, na? That is the existence of the two constants, small m and capital M, which satisfies this kind of inequality. To prove this kind, right part of the inequality is easier job. Here are the steps. Norm x is less equal by mod alpha x with some steps. Right part is easy. To prove the left part, we are going to start with mathematical induction. For n equals to 1, this is easy. We will assume the result is true for the spaces of dimension less than or equals to n, say n minus 1 dimension spaces. Therefore, we have started with a linear space L of n minus 1 dimension spaces over which norm is equivalent to norm 0. Now our aim is to show the result is true for n dimension space. Before going to do this, we will just try to construct an element in n dimensional space with the help of L. For that, we should prove L is closed. To prove L is closed, it is enough to prove that it is complete, because we know complete subspace of a nonlinear space is closed. Therefore, proving complete, we will prove completeness by taking a Cauchy sequence, and according to coordinate wise convergence, it will be complete. Therefore, it is closed. Then we will start with nth basis vector, and we will just add it to a set L. Okay, and here, as I have explained already, it is just a shift, it is an isometry. Therefore, L is closed will give us xn plus L is also closed. Therefore, the complement is open. Xn plus L do not contain an element 0. Therefore, its complement will contain the element 0. And as it is open, there exists a unit sphere centered at 0, satisfying this condition. Norm x is less than Cn. In the complement, the condition is norm x is less than Cn. Therefore, in xn plus L, it will be exactly reverse. Therefore, we have written greater or equal by Cn. X is an element in Xn plus L. Therefore, the element is written as X is initially it is element of L, that is alpha 1 to alpha n minus 1 scalars we will use with the help of basis vector as x1 to xn minus 1 added with the element xn. Here we will replace every vector alpha I by alpha I by xn and we will come to this equation. Okay, now this equation we have obtained by taking the missing vector as xn from the basis of En. Same process we will repeat by taking the missing vector as xi, and just repeat the process, we will get the same kind of inequality, right? Then as it is true for each I, we will just fix out this for minimum Ci. Why? Just in order to get the fixed value on the right side. As it is true for mod alpha, it is equally true for maximum mod alpha. But minimum Ci will keep small m, maximum mod alpha is nothing but norm 0. Therefore, the left part of the inequality is true. Therefore, we got this kind of inequality proving norm is equivalent to norm 0. Hence, all the norms or all the arbitrary norms are equivalent to norm 0. Therefore, all the norms are equivalent to one another. Hence, we can say that all norms on the finite dimensional spaces are equivalent. I hope you have understood today's lecture. If you have any kind of queries, you just please contact with me. Thank you for watching today's lecture.